Resilience in business is something that a lot of people don't really speak on. A lot of people want to talk about hustle culture. You want to continue to grind, you got to continue to show up as a barber. But truthfully, resilience is something that's super important when it comes to being not only just a barber, but a barbershop owner. I remember there was a very specific time in the beginning of my business, where I had maybe only $20,000 to start, and part of that was for the deposit, for the shop, and then I had no money for the chairs. So every single month that I was making any kind of profit, I was actually putting it back into the business. So when you talk about resilience, there's multiple examples across the 4 years and some change that I've been a business owner or a barbershop owner that I can speak on. I remember one very specific moment. My godfather used to take me out to, eat burgers, fries, and we would hang out all the time. And it was very present in my life. And for a lot of people that don't know, I grew up without a father. So, the family really stepped up, and he meant a lot in my life. And I remember that he was always coming over, supporting me. When I was in the studio, he came take pictures. He was super proud of me. And then at the barbershop, I remember there was a very specific picture in front of my RB logo that I had with him. I remember just sitting there in front of, man, I remember sitting there in front of the logo and taking a picture and just feeling the pride that he had as his godson. He's seen me struggle without a dad growing up, and then to see me become a barbershop owner. Well, moving forward, he passed away. And when he passed away, it was during a time that I think I only had one shop. And it was a Wednesday, and I clearly remember having to go bury him. And, I work Wednesday still. And we went to bury him. I went with the family. I was there. But I felt like I had a purpose to be a leader, to lead by example. And I remember that on the way home, I was going to go home after, but I had 4 appointments or 4 hours worth of appointments. And I remember still showing up to work. I remember on the way back going to work, on the way back to go to work, I remember I was crying the whole time. And I still showed up. In between clients, I was crying. I would walk outside, take a breather, come back in. And I just remember getting through that day. And a lot of the guys were like, hey, why didn't you just take that day off? I mean, call me crazy, call me insane. But I feel like resilience means, hey, you can get broken down, but how you come back up matters. How you're willing to take the blows matters. And I showed up anyway. I don't believe in not being a psychopath. If you want to win in life, you want to work, you have to put yourself in a position to show up even when it's hard. To lead by example isn't the only way. It's not the best way to lead. It's the only way to lead. And for me, I felt like I had to have that moment to prove to the guys that you could be going through whatever you're going through as a barber, as a barbershop owner, but you have to show up for your clients anyway. Oh, your godfather died. Cool shit. I need a haircut. I'm going on a date. Like, that's part of it. That's what you sign up for when you become a barbershop owner. There's no excuses, and I never till this day will give myself an excuse. Another example, I had an interview with Marv, I believe early last year in March, I believe. And I remember that I was going through something very personal around that time, but I had already set up this interview. Me and Marv connect. Shout out to Marv. And I just remember being in a position where I was crying super heavily. I mean, bawling my eyes out. As a man, I'll be vulnerable and tell you that it was one of the hardest things that I had to do, because the moment that interview came and that time came, I locked in, stopped crying. I felt like I did an amazing job. I feel like the interview was amazing. 360 G's even hopped in there and was testing me a little bit, call it what it is, but it was a good time. It's all friendly, but I just remember afterwards, like, that business side of me turned off and I started crying again. But I showed up anyway. Most people going through what I was going through would either not showed up, not been able to handle it, but that's part of what you have to do. You have to show up regardless. It goes with fitness. Last year, I was probably 215 pounds. Early last year, I was fat. I was a fat motherfucker. I have no excuse for that. You know what I mean? And then I wanted to lock in. I wanted to bounce back. I was like, what kind of leader am I walking into a barbershop full of hitters, full of people that are looking you to lead, right? Like, you got to be the example, but I'm fat, I'm sloppy. That doesn't match the energy. When you go through something, your body demands respect. You can't buy it. I have 3 locations right now. The Ranch Barber Company has 3 locations, but what does that matter? What does that matter if your body doesn't reflect that? You're in a position where you walk into a space, you can have all the money in the world, but being broke or not, it takes discipline to be in shape. You have to say no to a lot of good food more than you have to say yes. And that reflects exactly on how you run your business, right? So the resilience you have to be able to bounce back from being 33 years old, and people use excuses of, hey, no shots to anybody, but shots of peptides. People they have a lack of self-discipline, and it shows more now. People wanted to be on that body positivity kick, and so they made it easy for them to be able to actually lose weight, and everybody's doing it. Look, if that's what you have to do, that's on you. But for me, I wanted to have discipline. I wanted to bounce back from being completely overweight, being obese, being fat, sloppy. Now I'm walking around in my 160s. I've lost, I think, close to 50 pounds, and I feel the best I've ever felt, but I'm also executing at the level that I'm supposed to execute. So you can get broken down in life. I've heard it multiple times, right? It's not about how many times you get kicked down. It's about how you bounce back up. The last story I want to talk on, when it comes to resilience, is one of coming from an immigrant mother, a single immigrant mother. We watch her struggle financially to make ends meet, but we always had food on our plate. She always kept a roof over our head, worked 2 jobs. She did what she had to do to continue to build. As a man, what excuse do I have if I seen a 5-foot immigrant Mexican mother struggle with 2 badass kids growing up, supported me while I was in prison, always believed in me? What excuse do I have if life has beat her the hell up and she never quit on us? That is true resilience. When you have that kind of example, I have no excuse to continue to not show up. I don't care who you are, and if you're watching this, if you give yourself an excuse when you're waking up every day and you know that you have people around you that have had it harder and they still show up, why are you not showing up? When you have that kind of example of resilience in your life, you can never have an excuse to not continue to show up. So if you're going through something and you think it's hard, show up anyway. Because what matters is a year down the line, are you going to be proud of what you did or what you didn't do? Show up. Learn to be resilient. Just like a muscle, just like your mind, you have to build that skill. Someone knocks you down, get back up. Lead by example. If you're a barbershop owner, continue to show up. You want to be successful, continue to show up and do your fucking job. Be resilient.